You know what's funny too? I'll say this. I'll say there's something about it sucking so much more because of not being able to go to a movie theater.
Sure.
So it's like sharing the experience with my daughter the first time. It was kind of like it was an experience.
Right.
It wasn't just about Wonder Woman, the comic. It was kind of like, you know, I could read between the lines with this movie, and I was like, you know what, it's a good thing. You know, it's like my daughter, she vibed with it a bit, you know, even though my daughter usually listens to like Slipknot and right. It's just like, you know, she had a vibe with it, you know.
I didn't grow up with the comics. I didn't read many comics till I was later in life, and they were just like Swamp Thing, Sandman, Hellblazer. Like, I didn't grow up.
That's the good stuff, though.
Yeah, great. And I don't know, I was in my 30s, and I was like, this is the best.
Nice.
But I didn't grow up with it or caring about it. And now when I watch a Marvel movie, if I ever do, I'm always disappointed because I don't know, I'm not expecting anything, and I'm a grown-up. So, it's
you know, but it's an age-old tale. I think that there's always a hard thing for adaptation. It's like something that I said this to another comic store owner friend of mine. I was like, there's something about the idea of fantasy when you solidify it or make it real that it just like dispels it for you. You know, it's like there's a part where even the pictures.
Right. You don't engage any of your own imagination. You're just reacting to this thing. Whereas, for some reason, if you have the ability to contain a story that's written in panels, which not everybody does, that you don't really realize how much room there is in your imagination because these are just still panels. And after a certain point, you're not even paying that much attention to them. They're there just to provoke your imagination somehow.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens.
Right. So the relationship is a lot different than having it all done for you and then, you know, having to trust that person to do it for you. I mean, who the fuck is that person? You know?
Exactly. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, like a couple of the moments I was kind of like seeing the superpowers in real life, you kind of go, I could probably kick his ass.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, like I could probably beat him up, you know?
Yeah. He's not scary. Yeah. I guess for me, the first one was good in ways that a lot of comic book people didn't like. Like, I liked the ending, you know, like all the big weirdness of the ending, but they thought that was sort of like a sellout or something kind of overcompensating. I said, well, what are we working towards if it's not going to be something great like that?
Yeah, it's like there's so much to pull from with these stories. It's like it could afford to go anywhere, man. And you know, one thing I will say too is that one thing that's dope is that it highlights home guy, the guy that also plays the Mandalorian.
He was great.
Yeah.
Here's the best thing about that movie.
Yeah, he played a real creep.
The great thing about his creep, though, was like, it was an insecure creep, and you could see his insecurities from the get-go. So you kind of had this weird empathy, you know, which makes him a more interesting evil guy. Because you're like, oh, he's just a insecure loser. He's like Trump.
Yeah.
He's just like...
the comb over and everything, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have much empathy for Trump, but I mean, if you could, it would look like the Wonder Woman villain.
Yeah. And I'm a huge Kristen Wiig fan, and it's always good to see her. You know what I mean? Like,
I didn't understand that whole part. I guess you have to know the comic books for like why turn her into an animal when there's no real precedent for that? Like, out of nowhere, she's just an animal. And as a guy who doesn't know the comics, I was like, well, that's a weird choice.
Yeah, Cheetah. I knew who that character was, but I was also just like, it was one of those moments where I was like, you know, it's kind of like, it felt like a really bad cut and paste. It was like,
yeah, some of that
like,
stuff
hey,
looked really bad.
Kristen Wiig's amazing, and here's Cheetah. And it was just like, all right, well.
You know what else I just watched? I watched that Frank Zappa documentary.
Oh, nice.
Did you watch it?
No, I've been meaning to. I've been completely just sitting here staring at the sky and then like watching Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
I'm a total anime nerd, man. I'm just like,
yeah,
you know, through and through. So it's like it's the gist of this has been me sitting here tripping out watching hella anime. But like, I've been meaning to.
If fantasy works for you and it gives you relief, that's great. Like I don't have that. I just have, you know, dread and
existential dread.
Yeah, a lot of. And you wrote a song about that. Which album was that on? Was that on the new one? Existential Dread.
That was the new one.
That was good. Yeah, I could relate to that. I could relate to a lot of the songs. But I was watching, like, I talked to Bootsy a couple weeks ago, and then I watched the Zappa doc. So, you know, talking about Parliament and then watching, you know, what Zappa's trying to do and then listening to some of the stuff you've done. And the first time I saw you with Kamasi when Kamasi had his broken leg and he was sitting in a throne down at
Oh,
Staples.
yeah.
It was was that at the Staples? It was I can't remember where we saw it, but you guys have been somewhere, and he had to sit in that giant chair because he couldn't walk.
It wasn't the Mayan.
I don't think so. I feel like it was like you had just returned. It was in the small room at the Staples Center in the smaller lounge. Maybe it was. I mean, and that was when I first saw you, and I was like, how many strings are on that bass? So, but I guess the point being is that, my understanding of where music goes and what music can do, it seems something that you're highly aware of, and there seems to be no real boundary to it.
Yeah, no, it's very open. I blame it on how I was raised, and I always feel like the somewhere between the lines is where we exist with this stuff. So we got to always consistently blur those lines,
Yeah. Well, how does your upbringing relate?
Well, quite literally. I mean, I basically, me and Kamasi and my brother, and we kind of amongst other people, we were kind of born together, so to speak. Me and Kamasi's dad used to play together in high school or in college. And
Your
stuff
dad?
Like that. Yeah, our parents, and even
what was his instrument?
Kamasi. My dad's instrument was the drums.
Kamasi's dad's a horn player, right?
Yeah, Kamasi's dad is a horn player. Yeah, and then also another one like that is Georgianne Muldrow. Like, our parents grew up playing together, and they had us, and it was kind of like, you got that could go one of a couple of ways. You got the kids that resents because it's always being shoved down their throat. But it actually translated otherwise. It turned into like, it kind of passed down to us. So there's a part of it where we started taking it really serious at a really young age. Like, at a very young age, we got a chance to with the likes of Reggie Andrews and the Thelonious Monk Institute and all these different things. As we were kids, were very it kind of cultivated our ability. And then on top of that, we were also doing stuff like playing in nightclubs, and like, I was the kid where I couldn't stand in front of or behind the club, but I would come in to play, and then they would kick me out and throw me down the street.
Right.
Like, we were those kids.
Yeah.
But anytime anytime we got a chance to play, and it was like we got a chance to grow, we would take it.
But you would go see your folks. You would see your fathers play a lot.
Oh yeah,
right? I mean, you could go to the rehearsal space or wherever.
Yeah.
So, like, at that time, like, because like I always kind of knew about jazz. I listen to jazz a lot more now. I've broadened my collection a little bit.
Yeah.
And I can't wrap my brain around theory or anything like that. I play guitar, but I don't read music or necessarily understand things about it, but I can listen to stuff. I have pretty adventurous ears. Like, stuff doesn't bother me no matter how weird it gets.
Yeah.
So, like, when you're younger, I mean, what kind of jazz were you being brought up with, really?
Everything from big band to jazz fusion, to straight ahead. It was kind of all embedded. We, like, growing up with Reggie Andrews it was kind of like, everything from, we would listen to jazz in the mornings, and he would always quiz us on, it was kind of things where we would have to be able to tell who was playing by how they sounded. Yeah. So he would sit and listen to the radio, and it would be little incentive things like that he would reward us for. He'd be like, man, who is this? And you're like, man, that sound like Ornette Coleman, or that sound like Wayne Shorter. You hear certain types of note selection and stuff like that, or certain tone.
And you can do it?
Yeah.
You can tell these guys, most of them?
Yeah, it was kind of how, from that to, like, the types of standards we would learn. Like, Kamasi's dad, we would practice at Kamasi's dad's house a lot, and Cameron Graves is another one. We would practice at their parents' house, and Kamasi's dad would give Kamasi, like, a task, or give us a task to write a tune or learn a tune a day.
Yeah.
If you're going to sit back here and play, it's cool to be playing, but, like, challenge yourself with learning something new, and it skews and offsets the comfortability of how, all that kind of stuff. And then from that to, like, we would compete in, like, the John Coltrane Jazz Awards and stuff like that. We would do all kinds of stuff, and we would just be involved.
That's a hell of an exercise.
Yeah, it was a constant learning. Even when you're, like, sleeping, it was learning. Me and Kamasi, when I remember the day Amoeba I remember the day Amoeba set up and became a reality, and me and Kamasi used to live there. Like, Kamasi would go to UCLA, or, you know, him and Cameron would be in school, and then after they get out of school or when they would be on break, they come back to their, you know, they stayed in a spot at one point, and we would just go get in the car, buy a burrito, and go to Amoeba and spend like 5 hours there and come out with this sea of music. And like, it's just, we'd be sitting in the car eating burritos, listening to like some new Tchaikovsky or some, you know, like, what is this? Okay. You know, just examining stuff like that and trying to listen with bigger ears, you know?
So it was all music and Marvel for you.
Oh yeah, man, that's in anime, music, Marvel, and anime, and that was, when I say that's to this day, it's kind of like that's what everybody is always up against with me. Where it's just like in my most profound moment, I will still make a Dragon Ball reference. It's embedded in me, man.
I think that's some of the stuff that I don't quite understand on some of the records are references to things that I don't know about.
Yeah, no, it's
Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball is life. That's what it is. You know, Dragon Ball is life.
What is it?
It's one of the best cartoons ever created in the history of cartooning. It's like, you got Mickey Mouse, you know, you got Gundam, you know, you got Marvel, you got. I mean, I'm not going to fully be a hater. I'm going to say for some, it's DC.
Gundam, is that the Western with the Sensi?
No. You got Gundam is a Japanese cartoon that's it's just Giant Robo. It's kind of like in the earlier years of Giant Robo. There's a lot of different Giant Robo, but you know, you got all these different things. You got Hello Kitty from Japan. You got all this stuff, but Dragon Ball, and Dragon Ball Z, and now Dragon Ball Super, skipping Dragon Ball GT. It's like, it's kind of like this. It's the story of this. It's basically following this alien kid as he's growing, and watching him learn how to be human. It's kind of it's got a lot of parallels to like stuff that we recognize, like a Superman or like a know or just a the X-Men and stuff like that. It's like he's an alien.
What's the matter with GT?
GT, I don't know, man. GT just felt really it felt like neither here nor there. There was some good stuff in it, you know, certain moments, but it felt like the trope of, as compared to the feeling or the quality of Dragon Ball Z. So you would see, you know, like certain obstacles Goku and the guys had to overcome in Z were like really like, you could feel it. You know, Goku would die and like you have to wish him back, and then they only had this one. They can only wish certain people back, so just executive decisions would have to be made about who they bring back. And Goku comes back 10 times powerful. He's been traveling astral, and it's like he's been doing all kinds of stuff. So the story of Goku from a boy starts at Dragon Ball, and then Dragon Ball Z is him as a man. And then Dragon Ball GT is just him after listening to Flock of Seagulls or something. I don't know. And then And then Dragon Ball Super is him as a god, you know. And it's got a bit of a.
But you explain it to me, and it's like, you know, even if I'm interested, it feels like it would take a lifetime for me to take to catch up.
Dragon Ball Z. I mean, there's Cliff's Notes versions of it, and the truth is the manga is where it started as, and if you were into reading like that, I mean, if you wanted to check out Dragon Ball, it's always available. It's like it's almost it's like Batman. It's like it's a common. There's a good you could pick up at different points, and it would still be like, oh, I get it. Okay, that's Dragon Ball Z.
That's good. Okay, well, how did this? When you look about, when you think, do you have a whole room in your house full of vinyl and one full of comic books? I mean, do you?
It's all in the same space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's all not separated. It's all vinyls, comics, video games, toys. It's just here.
Right.
Looks like Nakano Broadway in here.
Well, when you think about it, do you feel that, you know, somehow or another, whatever your love for comic and fantasy planted in you influenced the music, or your ability to see music differently? Yeah, man.
The cartoons. I'm not gonna lie. The cartoons inspire the music. It's like like everything. Naruto and cartoons like Naruto and Cowboy Bebop and Dragon Ball Z. They inspire me to push harder. Like, to know that there is more there. You just have to push harder. Like, it's always, anytime I've ever watched Naruto, like it made me feel like I can be a better person. Like, anytime I would watch it, I immediately would start doing push-ups, or like, you know, or like,
really?
You know, yeah, like I spent most of this year, and like as we're talking about this year, and I mean, there was a giant weight loss that happened for me. And
yeah, you look lean. I remember when I saw you at Kamasi, you were heavier.
kind of bulbous. Yeah.
Bulbous with your big bass with 5 strings.
Yeah,